Now who wanna move close enough? Now who wanna move out on? If you got stripes and you let the city know you rock 'em, yeah, we got 'em, yeah, we fought 'em. Like that black and orange up on 'em, bingo bottle, never stop it. To the beast of Eastern know 'em. Who they rockin' with the diamond stripes, flossing on the ring. Cincinnati, she's our queen, we gon' show the world who king. Orange in the day, black in the night. Stripes in our veins, sparks gonna fly. The beast is awake, orange, black and white. Cause when the jungle come alive, who day we ignite.
Welcome to Bengals and Brews. I don't even see Greg over there.
No,
I'm
dropped something.
Joined by Greg. We will have Kelsey Conway. She said give her 5 minutes. That was when I was starting the intro. So life happens. She's a busy woman. This time of year, you got the Hamilton County stuff where it sounds like, the deal will progressively get done, but stuff like that. Anything you want to speak on that before she hops in? Because we're going to try to hammer draft stuff. We got her about 20 minutes or so.
Well, before I speak on that, shout out to Midwest Best Barbecue and the Chop Shop, proud sponsors of both of this show. Both reliable sponsors. Love them both. Big time. Yeah, buddy. But one more thing, Hamilton County, new escalators. Chop, if you watch this, they're listening to you. They're adding on new escalators. I love that, man. Like I say, this is a big step, Dale. Huge, big step. I don't see how you turn back from here, right?
No, I mean, I think they're working on a deal, loan from the NFL or something was discussed, different things. They're trying to get money from the state. It all sounds positive, right, for the Bengals to be here for the long term, which is what we always expected. It's good for the city. It's good for the Bengals to not have to move and buy a stadium elsewhere. So eventually it's going to get done, but there'll probably be some ups and downs still.
Yeah. It's when you get politicians and attorneys involved, it's always going to be messy. It's just how business works. It's the economics of business, but in the end, everything will work out, right? I mean, at least I think so.
Well, I guess we can talk about Lapham came out with his annual prediction, him and Dan Horde. Dan Horde picked Derek Harmon, whatever. Dave Lapham picked Will Campbell. What? He's probably going at 4 to the Patriots, so yeah, sure. If he's there, I mean, of course I would take Will Campbell, play him at guard, and I'd kick him out to tackle in a couple years probably.
When Dale told me Campbell, I'm like, okay, all right, Will Campbell. Like, no. I said G.I. Campbell. Like, no, Will Campbell. I'm like, what? I told Dale, they're like, I'd like Abdul Carter, but that ain't gonna happen.
Yeah. I was like, if we're just able to pick anybody, give me Abdul Carter, sign me up for that all day. But absolutely, if Campbell's there, and I get it, that's just probably Lap putting his stamp on the guy he loves in his class. And Lap's an O-line guy, so of course he wants to go. I just wondered how he felt about Tyler Booker. I didn't listen to the full thing.
Kelvin Banks, I'd like to hear what he have to say about Banks also.
It also sounds like Banks is trending toward being maybe a top 10. I mean, I was always thinking good chance he went in the top 15, but it sounds like there could be 3 of those guys going in the top 10. So that would be Mimbu, that would be Campbell, and that would be Banks, in my opinion.
Wow.
So all 3 of those might go as a speculation. It's smoke season, so there's a lot of stuff out there. You never know what's true or not true.
I just can't take Booker seriously, man, because Bengals love those guys that can kick outside a tackle, kick into guard. They love the versatility. I just don't see that happening. And now Tate Ratledge, here we go.
Yeah, and we will bring in our guest, Kelsey Conway, Bengals beat reporter for the Cincinnati Enquirer. Got to say all these awesome things she does first and foremost. USA Today, sideline reporter for the Cincinnati Bearcats basketball. UC alum, former lacrosse player at UC, the amazing Kelsey Conway. Hey, Kelsey, how are you today?
Hey, guys. Thanks so much for having me on.
Oh, thanks for joining. I know it's a crazy busy time, and it's only going to get busier for you this week, I'm sure, with the draft.
I know, but I'd rather be on talking about the draft this week than just sitting pondering, wondering what the Bengals could do. So I'm excited to be on with you guys.
Absolutely. So we'll start off with the fun one before we dive too deep into the draft. This is just in general. Who's the funniest or most entertaining player for you guys as beat reporters or for you personally that you talk with and interact with on a regular basis?
Wow, I've actually never been asked that. And that's an interesting question because there are several.
There's so many.
Jamar Chase is hysterical, but you get it in doses of like him being on the podium. So you don't get to like stand by his locker and kind of, chit chat like you can with some of the other players. But I would say he's so funny. Orlando Brown is very funny and very personable. And I really enjoy talking to Cam Taylor-Britt. He's funny and he's vibrant and has a big personality. So I would say those guys off the top of my head. But the Bengals have a great locker room. There's a lot of really nice, charismatic players. So I'm fortunate that, for the most part, when I go in there, most of the guys are very, very nice to the media, fun to talk to, engaging. And Mike Hilton was another one last year who was hilarious every time you talk to him.
Yeah, I'm still shocked he hasn't signed. We'll get into the draft a little bit. We'll kind of bounce around with the draft, some other things while we got you here. I know you got to get out of here by 4, so we won't take up too much of your time. But what are the top 3 positions you could see the Bengals targeting at pick 17 this year? They have so many needs, so I think it could be a lot, but try to narrow it down to 3 if you can.
So I'm releasing my 3-round mock draft tomorrow, and I've spent a lot of time on it, talking to a lot of league sources. And I only do one because sometimes I feel like mock drafts, the circuit gets a little crazy where people are just picking a new person every week for the sake of picking a new person. So I always try to gather as much information from people that I've talked to across the league that have very informed profiles. They've really studied these guys more than I ever could. And so I put a lot of weight into mine, and I'm not saying that mine's going to be like 100% right. I think that we should all just like not be so serious about mock drafts sometimes and just have some fun. But the reason I bring that up is because it's taken me so long to land on someone because of what you said. Yes, the Bengals want to take the best player available, but they aren't in the same boat as some other teams where they truly could take the best player available because they 100% have a lot of needs. And I think while they'll take the best player available, they're not thinking about their positional needs. So for me, the biggest needs for this team, edge rusher, opposite of Trey, and we don't know what's going to happen with Trey long term, but even if things get worked out and you square away him for the next couple of years, you need a bona fide edge number 2. And when, Trey Hendrickson is accounting for 17.5 of your 36 total sacks, that screams an imbalance across the defensive line. So I put edge as their number 1 need ahead of guard, which I know people might disagree with me. But I look at it as the Bengals at guard right now have Cody Ford, Lucas Patrick, Cordell Volson, all players who have played games, and whether you think their production is good enough, if the Bengals had to play a game tomorrow, they would at least know their 2 guards. If it's Cody and Cordell, have played with Burrow before, they have experience in the offense. If that it's still a need, but you could maybe get through 1 game. If you are the Bengals, you don't have Sam Hubbard anymore. You just don't know. Everyone's hoping that Myles Murphy, takes a jump, but you just don't know because you thought he was going to take a jump last year. And Osai, it kind of seems like he's one of those guys that it takes him about a half of a season to kind of get in his groove. So you truly have a square there where who are you putting in that box? So to me, edge is the biggest need. Then guard, of course, number 2. And then 3, I'm going safety because as you guys know and watched, all of last year and the year before, like the revolving door at safety at some point has got to stop. And I think there are some really good safeties in this class. So I think those are my 3 biggest positional needs for the Bengals.
Yeah, and linebacker could be one, depending on what they do with Pratt. There's so many, and I like interior D-line. People talk about that.
Yeah.
I like to cheat, and I just like to say D-line pass rush.
Mm-hmm.
If you can get that, at least in the first or second round, and you get one of those 2 positions, I think that helps Trey and everybody else a lot. And then guard, obviously, is a huge one everyone agrees with. But I agree. And then it's like safety, linebacker. There's so many.
Right. And if I had a fourth, I'd be comfortable moving linebacker, safety. After you said that, I was like, oh no, should I have picked linebacker? But
Yeah. All right, Greg, you got a question?
First of all, Kelsey, they also forgot to mention you came out of the Buckeye State College UC Bearcat.
I mentioned UC. I didn't say all that Buckeye State stuff.
Yeah.
It's just
We,
my Ohio State banner.
Kelsey, we are the Buckeye State, right? UC is.
Is it? I'm not from Ohio originally. I just went to school at UC. I'm a very proud Bearcat, but you'll have to tell me this Ohio State Buckeye UC debate.
Okay, there was a shirt out called the Buckeye State, but anyway,
Yeah.
So Zach Moss, Bengals redo Zach Moss's deal. Is this pretty much a guarantee? Not within at least the first couple rounds. That they will definitely not go running back with it. Probably the first 4 rounds, right?
Yeah, I don't see the Bengals addressing running back before the 5th round. I thought they would have gone running back way higher than they did last year.
Mm-hmm.
I've thought for a long time that running back room needed a revamp. So last year, them really not addressing it was surprising, but I think that's so far down on their list of rooms that they need to improve, especially now with bringing Moss back. I think that room looks much better than it did last year at this time. So I think running back is very far down the list of positions that the Bengals look at this draft and say, we really need to improve.
Yeah, it's so deep they might even get an undrafted guy to come in here. And they still have Kendall Milton, too, who I think they like that they brought in. Mm-hmm. You talked about this yesterday. It sounds like the plan is Josh Newton at slot, at least for now. I thought it was going to be Dax because that's what he kind of did at Michigan. But I understand not wanting to move him yet again to almost another position. And this is just what you heard. So, and then also with that, do you think they consider a cornerback early at all? Because I kind of think they like the young guys and they think they got good competition there.
I'm actually really glad that you brought that up so I could have a chance to talk about what I posted. So I talked to a number of people, and anytime I asked what the envisioned plan for the nickel spot is that the plan is for Josh Newton to compete to win the job. That doesn't mean that it is 100% penciled in, but I am just telling you that they view Josh Newton right now as an option for that.
Yes.
Because when you look at this Dax debate, and we'll have all off season, to talk about this, because what's important is that Dax isn't even on the field right now. So we don't know when Dax is going to be able to be at full strength, because he said he's only 6 months post-op yesterday. And so you know how it is. Remember with Cheeto, it sometimes takes those corners a long time to get their legs under them. So I think that the Bengals are planning on, making sure that Josh Newton is in a place where they give him enough reps in the off season and in camp, so that if in fact that is who they choose to go with, whether it be because Dax isn't available or they don't want to move him again, that they think they have a capable starter in Josh. Their coaches will always tell you can't name a starter in the off season. But yes, the internal plan is Josh Newton at nickel, because I think this is where they are thinking. And I'm not reporting this. This is my thoughts.
Opinion.
I think they are going to look at it as, how do we get our 3 best and most consistent players on the field? And I know it's very easy to say off the top of your head, that's Cam, DJ, and Dax. And the logical thought process then would be to move Dax inside. But I will tell you that DJ Turner has a lot of work to do in terms of proving that he can be consistent. Because if you don't remember, the last 2 years have kind of been up and down for him. And he didn't beat Dax out of his job to start the season. So he was a backup. And so while, yes, he was a 2nd round pick and he's got the physical skill set, his durability is something he's got to prove that he can get through a full season, and consistency. And we talked to DJ yesterday and he said, I have to prove consistency. So I think if they get through a camp and Josh Newton is really consistent in the slot, because I know that they really like the physicality and the toughness Newton brings, and he can't run like Dax can outside. So when you're looking at it, think of it as Josh Newton is better inside, whereas Dax can be really good outside and inside. And so I think they're going to try and get the three most consistent players. And if DJ ends up winning that outside spot and is consistent every day, I don't think it's a bad thing if you go into the season with Cam and Dax as your outside corners and Josh Newton as your nickel with DJ Turner as your backup. I actually think that's a pretty solid group. So I know people were a little bit surprised what that could mean for DJ Turner, but I just will tell you that like DJ Turner is someone that they really need to see consistency from. And I get it. He's a second round pick and he's got the speed and everything that everybody wants, but he's got to show the coaching staff that he can put it together before you can just pencil him in as a 100% starter for this team.
Yeah. And with Dax coming off injury, I think you said it, perfectly. Their thinking is, hey, we can't even really put Dax in the picture a little bit right now because he's not on the field. So, our plan is Josh is going to get a lot of reps here. Mm-hmm. These other two guys are on the outside. Dax can come in and really compete wherever. I mean, safety if he needs to. He's done it before. So he's a great versatile piece. And it's really about him getting healthy probably as much as everything else that they're thinking right now.
And just one more point on that. We did talk to Dax yesterday. And after the draft, I'll be able to have some more time to, write some stories about what some of these guys said. But Dax said in an ideal world, he wouldn't move again. But he said at the same time, I'm willing to do whatever the team needs me. So at some point, you also have to think, what is best for Dax Hill? And is moving him again the best? I don't know. But that's something that I'm sure they have to take into account because, we're going on a circle here with Dax and his, fifth year option is coming up. And I think
that's exactly what was going through my mind was the fifth year option.
They got to figure out where his home is. And while, yes, it's great that he has position versatility, he needs a home where you say, yes, if someone suffers an injury, he can slide into the slot. That's what people, I think, are missing. When Dax got hurt, he was playing in the slot because Mike Hilton wasn't. So he was playing his best football outside. And that doesn't mean he can't be good inside. He absolutely has the tools. But at some point, you have to think about it from where do we envision this guy? If we decide we want to give him a contract extension, where are we penciling him in? And it could be outside or it could be in the slot. But at some point, they've got to make a decision. And it's hard to look at what he did last year when he was healthy and say that he didn't play his best football outside.
And even the fifth year option, it's like $13 million for Dax. That would be one of the highest paid slot corners. So if they're thinking we're going to pick this option up, we feel like it's better value to keep him on the outside because we feel like we're getting a bargain at that $13 million.
And there's also, you hope it's not the case, but I feel like we should talk about it. We're all assuming Cam Taylor-Britt just rinses his hands and turns back into the player he was before last year. But what if this is the scenario? You get a couple games in and Cam is struggling like he was last year, and you then have to have DJ and Dax be your starters. What do you do with Cam? So that's why I think it's actually really smart of the Bengals to get Newton ready to go and give him a healthy amount of reps because you don't have as much depth at nickel as you do outside. So I think that it's smart of the Bengals, and they really like Josh Newton. I can tell you internally, I've talked to a number of people. They think he has a lot of good qualities, and having gotten to know him, I know his football character. It's really important to him. Who knows if, it's going to work out, but I just wanted to kind of talk through where I was at with that tweet yesterday, because I didn't want it to come off that it's 100% set in stone, but I will tell you that is the internal plan.
And it's a smart plan. There's so many questions outside corner. You explained it perfectly. Greg, do you got another one? Then we'll try to rapid fire because I know we got to get her out of here in about 5 minutes. So.
Yeah. And
you have Kelsey, 10. You're fine.
Okay.
Kelsey, as you said, the Bengals have a lot of needs. 6 picks, clearly not enough. Do you see a scenario where they trade back I don't even know if there's that many teams wanting to trade up in the first round, maybe in the second round. What do you think because they've made it clear they want more picks, obviously.
Of course they want more picks. They only have 6. But I don't see it happening. I'm sure they want to, but as you just said, there are so many teams kind of muddled around that 15 to 23 range that they all want to trade back and acquire more picks. But if you just look at the Bengals' history, they don't move. So I know it's the hot thing to talk about, and I could be wrong, and they trade back, but I look at it like this. The Bengals are in a win now. We need to get back to the playoffs mode. If there is a guy in your top 5, are you really willing to risk not getting him if he can be an impact player right away just so that you can get another 3rd round pick? I think the mentality for the Bengals shouldn't be to just, we're going to outscore everybody on offense, and if we can just piece together a defense, we'll be okay. I think the strategy for the Bengals needs to be, we need to nail this draft and walk away with at least 3 starters, in my opinion, 2 on defense, and let's go and let's get back into the playoffs with a high sense of urgency. I just don't think this is the time to deal with what ifs. And so that's why I don't see them moving.
Yeah, I would agree. I could see it in the 2nd round. They've done it more historically, even moving up for Cam Taylor-Britt, but moving down with Drew Sample, Jackson Carman. So, but in the 1st, I can't see it at all because of the cost of that too for other teams. Let's go with maybe a surprise pick at 17. So we talk about, the interior defensive lineman. We talk about edge. We've even talked about safety a little. Is there any surprise, any James Rapine surprise type of pick in your head? Because that guy loves offense.
I don't see a surprise because my list of who they could take is about 5 people deep. So you could say any of those picks are a quote unquote surprise to, so-and-so in Clifton, because they might have a different view of that player than you do. That's what makes the draft so interesting. Everybody has a different grade on a different prospect. But I think because it's just so unclear of where they could go with so many options, I don't really see a surprise. Like, I think the biggest surprise to me would be if they went safety. But if they have a high grade on Malachi Starks, is that a surprise to them? No. My list is heavily edge and D-tackle focused with Jahad Campbell in there as well. But I don't necessarily see a surprise unless I guess you could say if they took a safety, it'd be a surprise.
She can't give all that away for free on a podcast.
I can give my 5 away.
All right.
Because my mock draft is coming out tomorrow.
Okay. Make sure you check it out. Cincinnati Enquirer.
Yes.
USA.
Yes, that would be great. In no particular order, just rattling off the top of my head: Jahad Campbell, Walter Nolan, Shamar Stewart, Michael Williams, and I've gone around the merry-go-round with Derek Harmon, so let's just put him in there for the sake of putting him in there. But if you would have asked me last week who I thought they would draft, I would have told you Harmon, and now I've talked to more people who have me convinced that might be too rich for him. So those are my 5.
It seems like people are everywhere when it comes to Harmon, and then there's this all of a sudden, which it's lying season at this point, but there's the smoke about an injury, and it's like, well, that's new. Hadn't heard that one. Is there any update on Eric All? This is a little separate from the draft, but to tie in, then if he is going to be out for the season, like has kind of been reported, or that's what they're thinking, they still have a lot of other tight ends on the roster. Do you see them drafting one anywhere? And definitely not Colson Loveland, James Rapine.
I don't see them drafting a tight end in the 1st round. I would not be shocked if they drafted a tight end, maybe after round 3. I think at some point you need to find your replacement for Drew Sample. And while they looked at Eric All as that, he's got a really, there's a lot of question marks about his durability and his injury history at this point. So I don't think that's a position where you could look at and say we're set. So it would not shock me if they took a tight end.
All right, Greg, you got one, because I got one more, and then we'll get her out of here after you.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you talked about this a lot. Trey Hendrickson, will he be?
Well, that was me. That was mine too. So we got the same one. What happens with Hendrickson? Do they work out a deal? Basically, does he hold out in camp if it goes that long? And these are your opinion on the situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. I will say the Trey Hendrickson deal is not something that is anywhere closer to being solved right now. And I think that it's important to explain why. The Bengals work with a smaller front office, and everyone in the Bengals front office right now is focused on the draft. I think after the draft is when they'll go back to the table and try and figure out the Trey stuff. But I think it's kind of been put on hold right now because all of the people in the Bengals personnel department are focused on the draft because they do like cross-checking. So the director of pro personnel, Radicevic, and Mike Potts, the director of college scouting, they very much work hand in hand in cross-checking each other's work. So I think that's where the primary focus for the Bengals is right now on the draft. I think that they are not close right now on an extension. I don't think I'm breaking any news by saying that because, if you watch Trey's appearance on Pat McAfee, you could.
It's pretty obvious. Pretty obvious.
I think the disconnect, having talked to both sides of the situation, is that Trey Hendrickson feels the Bengals offer doesn't match his production and his impact on the team. And I think where his frustration lies is that then the Bengals will publicly say they respect him, they value him, but he looks at it as, well, show me the value with your contract offer. And that's kind of where they're not coming together yet. I will say that this is very important to Trey Hendrickson. And last year, him requesting a trade and then walking it back and coming to the offseason program kind of makes it hard to believe, oh, Trey won't, sit out training camp or whatever. This is a completely different situation for him because this is his chance to secure that last long-term extension in his career. So I think that should be noted, and what you take of that will be your thoughts. But it's very important to him, and he is not happy. And with that, I'll say his ideal hope is to be a Bengal and get a long-term deal done. But it'll be interesting to see both sides are going to have to budge for this deal to get across the finish line.
Do you think the trade is even on the table at all? Sorry to interrupt, but I know it's something that was asked there in the chat because I don't either, but that's floating out there again.
I think that if they were going to trade him, it would have been during free agency. Yep. And I think if the Bengals, it all depends on, say a team, let's make up a team. The Green Bay Packers had their edges slotted and none of them are available and they're bored. They just hate it. And they're like, you know what? We need an edge rusher. We'll call the Bengals back. I think it's only a scenario in that. But the Bengals lost leverage in that standpoint because the Bengals had all of the leverage during free agency when multiple teams were calling them and they didn't move him. And then I also go back to the Bengals are trying to win now. They're not a better team without Trey Hendrickson.
And you didn't spend the $16 million.
And he's under contract. So I think that exercise was for him to go out and see and see what he's worth and come back to the Bengals and they could talk about it. But I don't think that a trade is going to happen this weekend because I think if the Bengals would have been serious about trading Trey, it would have affected their free agency plans.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much for your time, Kelsey. You've been awesome. Would love to do this again maybe later on in the off season if you got some time. But tell everybody where to find your stuff as if they don't already know, and we'll get you out of here.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much for having me on. I really enjoyed talking with you guys. And I'll have my mock draft up on Cincinnati.com, Cincinnati Enquirer app. I'll also tweet it out. So be sure to check it out and let's have some fun with it. You might not agree with me. You might hate my picks. That is okay. The draft is supposed to be fun. And I really enjoyed getting on and talking a little bit about it with you guys. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your day and enjoy the draft.
Thank you, Kelsey. You have a good day as well. She was a pleasure to have on, and it was very nice to have her. I did interrupt a little bit at the end. Crip's getting on to me. You're right. Damn it, Dale. I was just trying to get the stuff in. I knew she had a hard deadline of getting out of here by 4, so I was trying to get as much stuff as I could for you guys. So, and it went along with what you guys were talking about. But
yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
No, nothing to apologize. You got to get him what you can, Dale. Thank you, Jerome.
Oh, man. So that was a lot of good information. And like she always says, and I want people to know that, it's her opinion. It's her thoughts. You know, it's what she's hearing a little bit, but like, this is what makes sense. And a lot of the things she said is things that I agree with. And honestly, I was one of those people with the initial stuff with that tweet of like, well, they're just going to give Josh Newton the job. Like completely, you know, just overreact.
Yeah.
But the more you think about it and listen to her talk about it, Dax Hill's not healthy right now. Of course, you want him in there. Dax Hill has played slot at Michigan. Dax Hill does have that fifth-year option and $13 million. You feel better about giving that to an outside corner for the following year than the next. Plus, CTB was benched at one point. If you got all three of those guys on the outside, you're going to give Josh Newton as many reps as possible. But if all three of CTB, DJ Turner, Dax are healthy, you may very well see Dax playing a lot in the slot as well, or Josh Newton. But you're giving Josh Newton those reps as a second-year guy on the inside when he wasn't getting as many, playing more on the outside last year. It makes ton of sense, especially.
No, absolutely. The way Kelsey explained that, yeah, like you said, Dale, that makes way more sense with the big picture. I totally agree with you. That I definitely liked how she explained that part.
Yeah. We need Eli Apple back. Hey, you never know, right? And I could still see them bringing in a veteran, they should do what a lot of other teams do. They should bring a veteran in to put on the practice squad. Like that's where Eli Apple was for the Chargers last year for a while, because then you're going to call him up. Injuries are going to happen. They're going to end up being on your squad. But if you got a guy sitting out there, it's a veteran that's played in this league, sign him to your practice squad. Makes a ton of sense.
Absolutely, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, you asked the couple questions you asked was on my list, so it just kept going down through the list and it worked out.
No, the
perfect,
Bearcat. Right? I should have explained her over at the Buckeye State. She went to UC, but the Buckeye State thing I should have been more explained.
It was like one T-shirt, Greg. She's supposed to remember one T-shirt.
That was the time we were.
You just had to get it in. You had to get it in.
I had to
take a dig.
I had to. I'm sorry.
But so that was awesome to have Kelsey on. We did a crazy show yesterday, and we're going to be live streaming on Thursday. Iceman's got his live show. I'm going to be on with Iceman today at 5:30 and the Draft Professor. So all kinds of content still coming, but this one's not going to be a super long episode. We kind of told you guys that yesterday, but I do appreciate everybody tuning in. You weren't here for us anyways. You were here for Kelsey Conway today, and we don't blame you one bit. She was a great guest.
Absolutely.
Pleasure awesome to talk to her. But I do appreciate all you guys tuning in as always. If you're just sitting at home Thursday and you're not going to Jeff's show, and you're not going down to any other draft events, pop on the live stream because, man, I'll be in rare form a couple hours into that thing. I was watching back the one from a couple years ago. I had no voice. Like 2 hours in, I had no voice. So that was just a marathon. Then we did 2 more days of it. So quite comical, but I will be on with Iceman at 5:30. I appreciate all of you guys. And since you tuned in and were so generous, I'm going to give you Greg doing the dot bot to end this episode. I love you all. I appreciate you all. Houday, I hope you have a great week.
Bengals and Brews, the podcast crew. Della Open, Orange Arrow, Pork Chop 2. Greg Luther, Big Savage, Dot Bot King, Yoshi Lover, they bring the zing. Cincinnati Bengals, the pride of the city. Join the fun with Pork Chop Boys Mayor. Listen